What's going on, Ravens fans? Welcome into the Ravens Rundown. I am your host, Joey Petersen, doing a little at-home video for you because we got a ton of news to talk about. Three things in particular. Number one, we're going to start it off with Tylan Wallace re-signing with the Baltimore Ravens on a one-year, $2.25 million deal. I love Tylan, love what he was able to do, just kind of in the small flashes, right? He wasn't an every-game wide receiver. He wasn't an every-down wide receiver, but when you saw him do what he does best, which is get the ball and then make plays at open field, like in Cincinnati Bengals, that's when you saw the potential for what he could be. More on Tylan in just a second, because also the Baltimore Ravens are officially releasing safety Marcus Williams. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, when the news came down that they were going to or planning on releasing him. However, today in the new league year, it has officially become official. And then also Diana Rossini tweeting just a little bit ago that the Rams linebacker and special teams ace Jake Hummel heads to the Ravens on a one-year deal per source. Alrighty, we got a lot to break down. Before we do that, make sure you guys subscribe, okay? Who else is giving you guys a video at home instantaneously right when news happens to make sure you don't miss a beat on your favorite team in purple and gold? Hit that sub button. Alrighty, let's talk about Tylan Wallace because I talked a lot about the wide receiver room over the course of the offseason so far, over the course heading into free agency. I knew that wide receiver was going to be, I don't want to say a topic of discussion, but was going to be something that this front office, this organization looked at in building over the course of the offseason, whether it was through free agency or in the draft. Well, last night news comes down, DeAndre Hopkins, he's now a Baltimore Raven. But I didn't assume that they were just done with that, because you looked at this depth chart and the way it was. You had Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. Those were the only two wide receivers technically under contract. Other than that, Nelson Aguilar, Steven Sims Jr., Tylan Wallace, Deontay Hardy, all of those guys were unrestricted free agents. And if I had to get my pick of those four guys of who I'd want to bring back, there's no doubt in my mind it would have been Tylan Wallace. We talked about the Bengals game already, and I don't know how we can't keep talking about it, right? Tylan Wallace really showed what he was capable of doing in that game. On the entire season, he had 193 yards and a touchdown, but just in that game of itself, let me pull up the stats right here. 3 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. So out of that game, he had 78 yards and 8 catches, but still, he showed everything that he could be in that game with that 84-yard touchdown run in a time where that team really needed it, trailing a really good Cincinnati Bengals team with a really, really good offense. I think Tylan Wallace has a ton of potential in this league, okay? I don't think he's ever going to be your wide receiver 1. I don't even know if he's ever going to be your wide receiver 2. But I think that what he's able to give to this team as a wide receiver 3, a wide receiver 4, just another really good option when a guy like Lamar Jackson's trying to make a play with his legs, when Lamar Jackson's on the run, when Lamar Jackson's looking downfield and seeing what wide receivers are getting themselves open through him and his mobility. That's where Tylan Wallace shines. Okay, Tylan Wallace is also a guy who shines in special teams. You saw it from time to time this season. The punt return comes to mind from a year ago, right? A lot of these things that he does really, really well. I'm really happy this team's giving him a chance. I'm really happy this team's bringing him back, and I'm really happy this team is now focusing on this wide receiver position at this point in the offseason after signing DeAndre Hopkins and after now re-signing Tylan Wallace. All right, let's talk about Jake, shall we? Jake Hummel, that is, the linebacker coming in from the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I know you hear linebacker and you automatically think, okay, good, Chris Board's gone, Malik Harrison's gone. We need a guy next to Roquan Smith. We don't know what Trenton Simpson's going to be. I'm going to tell you to pump the brakes just a little bit, because although he is although he's a good linebacker, where he really thrives and where he really contributes on the football field is in special teams. Okay, over his last 3 seasons, he's logged over 820 special team snaps, 337 in this past year, and he's logged I think around 74 total defensive snaps this last year, 45 the year before that. And so he is heavily used in special teams. You're not going to see this guy out on the field as much as a linebacker. He can give you those minutes, but just because you signed Jake Hummel doesn't mean I think this team should be done looking for that next linebacker to pair next to Roquan Smith, okay? The jury's still out on Trenton Simpson. That's the truth, okay? I know it sounds harsh for a guy who was a starter for the first 15 weeks of the season, but then for the last 4 weeks, it seemed like he played, 15 snaps? Maybe? Like, probably even less than that, okay? And so, Jake Hummel, he'll do good for this team. He'll do fine. You know, he'll be versatile. You'll be able to use him on special teams, like I've said, like I've mentioned. But I think it's ridiculous for us to be sitting here on Twitter excited about the signing, saying, you know what, is this the next linebacker, next Roquan Smith? I don't think that it is, okay? I don't think that it is. Let's wrap it up talking about a little bit of Marcus Williams because he is officially going to be released today. Marcus Williams had a very roller coaster-like career and tenure in Baltimore, let's just say, right? You bring him in a few years ago, starts off really, really hot. You bring him in on, I believe it was a $12 million a year deal, 5 years it was. And, you know, he started off great. And then this year happened, right? And it seemed that automatically this team improved. This defense improved. This defense turned on their head when Marcus Williams was on the bench. When you remove a guy who was the starter for the first 14 weeks of the season, when you remove him from the equation and your defense automatically gets better, then what are you doing paying that guy $12 million a year for? Right? We knew this was the right decision. We knew this was probably going to be the decision from like week 15 and on when he stopped playing. Maybe week 12 and on, okay? Now what I want to turn my attention to is Darius Washington. This is a really interesting situation over the last, couple of hours because some news came out today, and I'm going to find it for you guys so I don't get the wording wrong. But Darius Washington, he's been given the right of first refusal tender by the Ravens, $3.263 million. It means that if Washington signs an offer sheet with another team, the Ravens have the chance to match it. If they don't, they lose Washington for no compensation. Okay, he is a restricted free agent, so that's why they're able to do that. I don't know why they haven't re-signed him yet. I would expect them to re-sign them in the next couple of days. I would hope they re-sign him in the next couple of days. I was speaking ad nauseum about how much Darius Washington has meant to this team. He wouldn't be that expensive. Actually, I've got everything ready for the video when it eventually does happen. I'm just waiting to film it, okay? Darius Washington, I think he'll be locked down soon enough. But as of the news from tonight, Tylan Wallace, re-signing. Jake Hummel, new signing. Marcus Williams, officially going to be gone. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. I got some dinner to eat at home. I know it's late, but thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like the video, and if you haven't already, hit that sub button.